Hi.
Oh.
That's one way to start. Welcome, Garz.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be here.
I'm just fascinated by your work and how you have taken the energy work and put it in a way that people understand, almost normalized it. And so you are somebody who now, in your healing practice, that you help others heed their own call or find their own purpose. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I had the experience of knowing my calling very, very young. So while I was sort of defending myself and navigating a very kind of quietly violent world, because I grew up with gangsters and mobsters, and so I was always navigating that, but underneath it I had that feeling like, oh, you're here to do something, and you're here to help something. And so I guess the question is, in your work, what is the process of you helping people figure out what that calling is? Or
I don't like to tell people what their calling is, because I feel like that is disempowering for the person. But what I like to do is I like to remove the blockages that is stopping them from discovering what their purpose is. I'd rather clear things so that they get the direct message, they get the download, they get the vision.
right.
You know, they get the signs. That's what typically happens.
Yeah, it's almost like you take away the blockages with the energy clearing, and then it restores the body, mind, and spirit to naturally heal.
It removes the clutter so that they can see or feel or hear what they're supposed to connect with.
What does energy look and feel like? How do you identify those things? Is that a valid question?
Yeah. Every energy is different, just as every personality is different, right? So everyone's energy is different. Some people's energy is very slow and calm, and some people's energy is kind of like spiky and edgy, and some people's energy is thick like molasses, and some people's energy is heavy and suppressed and depressed, and some people's energies are out of their bodies, and some people's energies are not grounded in earth, they're otherworldly almost, and some people's energies are very fiery, and some people's energies are thick and dense, so it depends on the person.
And you intuit that,
Well,
or
can,
do you
can
see it?
You see it, you feel it, you hear it, you know it, right? You sense it.
Sense it.
Yeah.
I sense so many people need the work that you do, and this energy clearing and this understanding that we are energetic, right? How do you explain to people who really think it's all kind of like, well, if I can't touch, taste it, or, see it, it doesn't exist? Is there a way that you work with somebody who's come to you that maybe doesn't have the language that we have?
Yeah, it depends on the person. So there are people who see me who don't even speak English, right?
Oh.
But they're open to do a session. I don't need to speak to them during the session. I just work on them silently. And then there are those who have a translator with them, and they'll translate whatever I'm saying to them, but I will keep it to a minimum and just tell them the basics. And then there are those who come because they've been gifted a session. And maybe they're skeptical, and maybe they're pessimistic, and maybe they don't really believe in energy healing and reincarnation and
Karma.
entities and karma and stuff like that.
Right.
And sometimes they're very religious, and I will keep that to a bare minimum. I will just speak very basically, And then there are those who come and they know that they have entities, and they know that they've been abducted by aliens, and they have reoccurring dreams or visions, So, and then with those people, we can talk
Right.
very frankly and openly and be transparent.
It's fascinating. totally fascinating, because as you're talking, I think about, well, I know that you have, certified in 20 different modalities, right? So you have developed a technique, is this fair to say? A technique in everything that you've lived, and then everything that you've learned, acquired knowledge along the way, and put it together in somebody named Garz Chan, who makes yourself available to people, to heal people and meet them where they're at. Would that be something that you would say?
I've learned all these different techniques and modalities, and I've just blended them because every modality has its strengths and its weaknesses. And some modalities work on some people better than others. So I have to shift and see, okay, which tool can I use for this person? Which one is more effective? And I wouldn't say that I've healed anyone. You know, I'm just like a cleaner or a janitor. I just clear away the clutter, and the person heals themselves.
And that you do with light language?
I do it with light language, or I do it with Chinese energy healing, or I do it with
like muscle
psychic
testing
surgery
as well?
I can
do you use muscle
testing.
testing always in the beginning of a session?
Not always.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Psychic surgery. Tell me about that.
Psychic surgery. So I just pull up your hologram.
Okay.
And scan it to see what's stuck in the hologram. And it can be objects from other lifetimes, it can be traumas from other lifetimes, it could be parasites or entities.
I want to talk a little bit about your beginnings, because you were a reluctant healer. And that's a very interesting thing, because you just didn't feel like you were the spiritual type. So tell me a little bit about the beginnings and your journey as a child.
As a child, all right, we're going way back. Well, I was born and raised in a small town called Didcot Parkway in Oxfordshire, which is about 45 minutes outside of London.
And how did your family get there? From Hong Kong, right?
Yes.
Were they interesting, rebellious people?
My dad was very rebellious. My dad was turned into a very violent alcoholic.
A violent alcoholic.
Yeah. My mum was very prim and proper and like a good girl, very obedient, very subservient woman. So he got bullied a lot when they immigrated, and he wasn't interested in school, but he was very charming, he was good looking, he was a snazzy dresser, he could dance, he was popular with the women, he had swag. And my grandfather was an alcoholic, so he became an alcoholic to get closer to my granddad, his dad.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But of course, he was abused as a child as well, so there's trauma there. And then my mum and dad met in England, and they got together.
Very young?
My mum was 19 when she gave birth to my brother, who's 3 years older than me. And then she gave birth to me, so there's 2 of us. And then my mum left him because he was very violent and ended up in Didcot with her parents, who ran a small Chinese takeout and restaurant. So east out of London. My father was in Essex with his parents, and my mum went west out of London to her parents. So my brother and I we grew up with our maternal grandparents.
And how was that?
It was really interesting because we grew up in a small white town, and we were made to feel, not from our friends accepted us, but everyone else.
You were different.
Yeah, there was a lot of racism, and it made us feel like, people always telling us to go back to our own country, which was confusing because I was born here.
Yeah.
And I was raised here. So when people said you need to go back to your own country, I didn't quite understand what that meant, because it's like, oh, you mean from my parents' country or from my grandparents' country, but that's not my country.
But a child wouldn't really, that would be hard to hear. It'd be confusing.
Yeah. I did get bullied quite a bit, just like my brother did. And we would always get into trouble. My family would beat us with canes. And I remember one time someone picked on me, I got in trouble, my family beat me with a cane.
So somebody picked on you,
Yes,
but your family beat you.
yes,
Yeah, I had that happen as well.
yeah.
It's
Where
just
your
very strange.
family
My,
from?
my parents are immigrants from Italy,
Ah,
but anytime something happened,
yeah,
particularly if it was because I was a girl,
yeah,
you know, I would get blamed for something I didn't even
yes,
do,
yes.
but attracted it somehow.
Yes. My family said, don't ever get into trouble. Whenever people pick on you, you have to walk away. No matter what happens, you got to walk away. But my brother pulled me to the side and he said, don't listen to them.
Oh,
They weren't born here. They weren't raised here. They don't have to go to school here. They don't know what it's like
right,
to be here.
right.
So if someone starts on you, you got to fight back. Let people know that they can't mess with you.
Absolutely. So you
And
did.
I was conflicted at first.
Yeah.
That felt really scary,
Yeah.
you know. But I thought, okay, I'll try it because either way I'm going to get beaten anyway,
Right.
right? So then, yeah, I started standing up for myself and fighting back. And so then I developed a bit of a reputation for fighting.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then that becomes your protection, your armor, right? Something that you take pride in because it becomes your identity.
Your shield.
Yes, your shield. And then
Yeah.
you protect others, right? Then I started protecting other people, and I was that person who would
Yes.
stand
Me
up for
too.
my friends. And
Or as for somebody I didn't know who was getting,
Yes.
you know, just always stepping in.
yeah,
Fascinated by the amount of people that have come online, so to speak, in themselves, that understand that they're here for the greater good. You know, people call them star seeds, light workers, way showers, you know. And I'm grateful to your work because I think there are a lot of people that feel that they don't exactly know what that is. And so have you noticed that since maybe in the last few years that that's really become exponential?
yeah. There are certain years where there's like the wave, like a massive wave of people come online, as you say, or awakened, right? And I would say 2012 was definitely a year, and then 2020, when there was a lockdown and COVID,
Right.
there was another wave, like a mass awakening that happened as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think that that accounts for the great shift that seems to be
happening.
very much happening.
Yeah.
How do you feel about where we're at currently in the world?
I have mixed feelings. You know, there's a lot of different agendas at play. And of course, I can spin out when I think about the amount of children who are being abused and trafficked, and, you know, that can really make me spin out. But then I think about all the people who are awakening or coming online or who have a burning desire to help humanity in some way, and that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot more, I see a lot more healers, a lot of psychics, a lot of mediums, tarot readers, astrologers. It's everywhere now.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the good part
Yes.
of social media,
Yes.
right? And I see, like, I've been watching you, and you've really, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? I mean, people follow because there's something there, and that's a beautiful thing that we have.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really lovely. I want to talk about light language because I would like to know, where does it come from, and is everybody speaking a different light language,
Yeah.
and what is it really used for?
So light language is essentially the language of the soul. It activates the DNA and the psychic centers, the pineal gland, and it's not a language that is to be understood logically. It's to be felt. And it's a language that originates from different galaxies or different planets. So for a lot of people, they don't feel like they belong to this earth. They don't feel like they belong to the town or the city or the country that they grew up in. And some people don't even feel like they really belong to their family. And so I would say, oh, that's probably because you're a starseed, you know? So your soul may have originated from a different planet or a different galaxy or a different solar system. And there are
Many.
So many different galaxies and solar systems, so many different starseed races, so many that we don't even know of. And just like you've had different lifetimes being different people or animals, you know, we've also had different lifetimes being different alien species or ETs or starseeds. You know?
Do you see that with people?
Yes. Well, I've always been able to feel spirit and entities, or some people call them ghosts. I've always been able to feel that since I was a child.
Did you talk about it?
Did I talk about it?
With anybody as a child? Could you talk to your brother about it?
No. No. Yeah, my family didn't talk about anything. My family were very quiet. So I grew up in almost like this kind of like silent movie, you know?
Yeah.
Like everyone worked as a family in the restaurant day and night, but they didn't talk to each other about anything. So I feel like, in a sense, that benefited me because I was able to tune into energy and just read body language, you know?
Yeah.
Because when you don't use words, they say that 70% of our communication is verbal or non-verbal.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I've always been able to feel and sense spirit activity. But the light language a client came to see me and she said, I saw this video of this woman doing something and I can't stop doing it. And she started signing light codes, doing light codes, light language, but with her hands. And it was really weird because I didn't know what it was, but it activated something within me. And I thought, I recognize this. But then afterwards, I researched and I found light language and I thought, oh, this is what it is. And then and now I teach it.
Can you do some light language for us?
Yeah. So I can do light language, but it'd be better if I did a light language with an intention. So you can share with me what it is that you'd like me to work on, or something that's bothering you or troubling you or upsetting
came
you.
up this morning, which I've been dealing with for a very long time.
Okay.
Since 2008, I've had a very, very loud ringing in my ears,
Okay.
mostly on my right side. It happened one day. I just sat up out of bed. I think I had a cold or something, but it popped. And then it was just a horrific experience for many, many months. And then, I was like, I wanted to kill myself. I was crying all the time. And the more I focused on it, the bigger it became. And so, but I was thinking about it this morning, and I remember that my mother was with me. She was visiting from New York, and she was with me. That was a piece of it that I felt like, that happened. And then it was also right as I was about to go to New York to do stand-up in a very large venue. I hadn't really been a stand-up very long, but all these things were coming to me, and it was like a dream. But I also never really wanted to be a stand-up particularly, so I couldn't say no to it, because who would say no? But it was also, I'm about to do something, and the pressure of that, I remember feeling like everyone that I knew everyone was going to show up, hundreds of people. So I never went. I never did it because of this ringing in the ear. And it's been, now I went on to do stand-up and big shows, but I didn't do that, but the ringing stayed with me. And the only way that I was able to deal with it, or the only way that I am able to deal with it, is I went to, for about a year, I went to hypnosis with somebody who knew about this. And, after I did all of the testing, that there was nothing anatomically wrong, he reframed it for me so that it wasn't so alarming, and that kind of quelled it. But sometimes, even like 3 nights ago, out of nowhere, it's like very, very loud, and I have to go, okay, you're good, you're good, you're good, you're good, everything's fine, nothing's wrong, it's an alarm, but it's not an alarm, and I literally have to talk myself off the ledge. So, among other things that I have, that would be something that I
Yeah.
never really thought to look into it further.
So when you think about this ringing in your ear, how does it make you feel?
Like something's wrong.
Okay. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how intense is that right now?
Right now it's about a 6.
A 6. And where do you feel tension in your body? Solar plexus?
Yeah.
When you think about your mum back then, how does that make you feel?
It's, having to always be on for her.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, having to be, her everything,
Yeah.
her shining star.
And how do you feel when you think about having to listen to her?
Confused. She was a confusing person because based on where she was, I had to sort of adjust. That is interesting.
Yeah.
That you're saying that.
Yeah.
I never knew what I was going to find. And I'm
Right.
very sensitive to people who do that to me now.
Yeah.
They change, like, oh, what happened to the love?
Yeah.
What happened?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just left you 3 hours ago and there was a lot of love. And now
Right.
what happened? And then I go, oh. So I did feel a lot like that.
Right.
Leave to go to school, one mother, come back. I don't know what happened, but you take it on.
So you had to listen to all the little changes in her, right?
Yeah, and a lot of fighting.
Yeah.
Unlike your family that was quiet,
Yours was very loud. Yeah.
and a lot of arguing.
Yeah.
Not violent,
Mm-hmm.
just constant
Yeah.
arguing, and I didn't like it because I was peace loving, and I was like, why don't they just talk
Yeah.
to each other?
So when your mum switched, it felt like there was something wrong with you, right?
Yeah.
What's
Oh,
wrong with me?
Wrong.
Right. So do you mind if I do a bit of work on you right now?
I don't mind.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, it doesn't matter whether your mother's here or in the spirit realm, we can still work on the situation, the relationship. So I just put her in a ball of light, put you in a ball of light. And we're going to clear some karma first, right? So whatever you owe her, her family, friends, enemies, her ancestors, family, friends, enemies, descendants, family, friends, enemies, we're going to cut, cancel, pull, remove that from the 4 levels of your body. Okay, and then whatever she owes you, cut, cancel, pull, remove. Whatever your family, friends, and enemies owe each other, ancestors, family, friends, enemies, descendants, family, friends, enemies, cut, cancel, pull, remove. And then clear lifetimes of the 2 of you being family, friends, enemies, neighbors, partners, lovers, master, slave, pet owner, boss, employee, other dynamics, 10, 102. Let's clear that down to 0. And sever the psychic cause and energy cause and power cause between you and her. Okay, and then also the accumulative effects of having to listen to her, to bear her volume, her whatever, the heaviness of whatever she said. Right?
Heightened.
Yeah, so just clear that from you as well, right? And then feeling like there was something wrong with you, right? We need to clear that as well. The effects of her parenting on you, we need to clear that as well. When she hears you, you're strong. When she doesn't hear you, it weakens you energetically. So we need to clear that and correct it. Whether she can hear you or not, you should be nice and strong energetically, right? When you can hear yourself, you're strong. When you can't hear yourself, it weakens you. So it's cleared that and correct it. Whether you can hear yourself or not, you should be nice and strong. When you can hear her, you're strong. When you can't hear her, it weakens you, because then you don't know, is it dangerous or not? Is she being dangerous or not? Am I in danger or not? So we need to clear that and correct it. Whether you can hear her or not, you should be nice and strong. But then we also need to clear from you her inability to listen and to hear other people, right? Even herself, even her own intuition, the inability, right? 10, 100,000, 10, 100 millions, 1, 2. That's about 2 million%. I need to clear that down to 0. and send that out of your exit portals, okay? And then there's also like this internal alarm that you feel like you need. It's subconscious, it's not conscious, right? So to alarm danger, okay? So let's clear that as well, right? Not just from this lifetime, but also other lifetimes. And then at 5 years old, you felt really unsafe, right? So I'm going to speak light language to your 5-year-old self to remove some of this danger that she felt, okay? And you don't have to think about it, just feel it. Just take yourself back to being 5 years old, okay? I akara aka shikara ekruskur o kuria karskara o kuria shi karskara I shikara aka shikara ashkara akruskur o kurskur o kukara I karskara shi akara shikara o karkara shikara ashkara I karkara shikara ashkara o kurkara shi akara shikara ashkara I shikara aka shikara kurskur o kaka shi karskara shikara ashkara Okay. We also need to remove lifetimes of hearing explosions and gunshots, people being killed and murdered, okay, kidnapped. Let's clear those lifetimes. And also the effects of growing up around gangs and mobsters and crime. Okay, let's clear that. Having to look over your shoulder, being around people who had to look over their shoulder. Okay, let's clear that as well. There's something about waking up or not waking up in time, or waking up to dead bodies, waking up to people who've been taken from you. Okay, let's clear that as well. Okay, how does that feel now?
Relaxed, you know.
You feel more relaxed?
Less on guard. Always on guard, always on guard.
Yeah.
Always on guard.
Hypervigilant.
Hypervigilant.
Yeah.
And 5 years old for sure. This was the first trip I made to Italy.
Okay. How does the tension feel in your solar plexus now?
You know, it's interesting because I like it to let it go is also frightening. Like I just like, okay, it's okay. You can let it go and you can relax into it.
Well, you're not used to feeling safe. And that's why it's very important to you to create safety for other people.
Yeah.
I noticed when I just met you, you really put a lot of effort and energy into making someone feel welcome and making someone feel safe because you are not used to feeling safe, right?
That's so true. That's so true. Thank you.
And the word acceptance is coming up. So either you didn't feel like you were accepted or you felt like there was a question, do people accept me? I want to say around 12.
Yeah.
The word, the number 12, 15, 16 is coming up.
That was a difficult time. The transition from girl to womanhood radically quick didn't give me a moment, and I went from being accepted as this crazy girl to not accepted as a woman. And that was very defined for me, and I went, oh, this isn't love. What happened? What's wrong? You know, always what's wrong? You know, what did I do wrong? All I did was become older, you know?
Yeah, there was a period that you went through where you felt numb.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And it had to do with your power. It had to do with like not being able to be powerful. Or like your power was threatening or intimidating to certain people.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to be like a little dimmer than I was.
So now when you think about the hissing sound in your ear now, what comes up
Well,
now?
it's a little bit quelled, I have to say.
Okay.
It's not as dense.
Yeah.
Not as dense. It's like, it's wispier sound.
Wispier.
That's interesting.
And when you think about it, how do you feel now?
I feel like I've been given insight that helps me relax. I feel a little bit more empowered. Definitely had a challenge dealing with the violence in the world as a kid. It's helping me realize that kind of always being afraid to stop moving because something could happen.
Mm.
So that's been a definite journey to get myself calm enough to heal my body or even know what's going on. You know, that interesting duality of having a calling, which I've always been really clear about, always been very clear about where I'm going and what I'm doing, why I'm here. And it's always really to connect this, to assist and to somehow community us into some kind of healing. I've been following this call to just keep going and keep learning and keep, you know, growing enough so that I can be of assistance to people. That's always what I've done my whole life. On the other hand, you know, I haven't really paid too much attention to much else, you know, and so that sort of became apparent to me in the last couple of years. I'm like, oh, okay, you know, you have to do some work. There's trauma, you know. It's not just this like, let me go and do this thing, you know. One of the things that you said to Lee Harris, which is that you, who I love, you said to him, you know, I didn't think of myself as a healer because I did A, B, C, and D, right? But I think it's such an important thing as a healer to be an experiencer of life, right? And to you know, to deal with your own trauma, to try different things. I was hearing in your interview how you were reluctant along the way because you just didn't feel like, who are you to?
Yeah, I've lived so many lifetimes in this lifetime, you know. I've cleaned toilets, I've worked in restaurants, I've worked in clubs, I've worked as a dominatrix, I've worked in factories or a gas station, and I smoked for 30 years, and, you know, I was raving jungle raves at 19, I started clubbing at 12, so I just felt like you got the wrong person. I'm not a healer. I'm not pure and innocent and holier than thou. Like, this is not for me. And I was smoking cigarettes when I first started healing as well. And actually, I was when I first started, I was working as a healer during the day, and then I was going off in the dungeon at night. You know, so it was this really weird duality that I was existing in, and I kept saying to the universe, I think you got the wrong person. I don't think this is for me. But if you feel like this is how I'm supposed to serve people, then you need to make sure that I have a full-time practice within 2 weeks. Otherwise, I'm not doing it. And within 2 weeks, I had a full-time practice. And then for another 2 to 5 years, I was like, I don't think I'm supposed to be doing this. But the clients kept coming. But then I realized that because of all those experiences, I was able to relate to my clients, and I was able to have compassion and less judgment, and I was able to connect with them and understand people, you know, because when you've been abused, you can spot that in other people. Right.
It's like you can really teach from experience and heal. Not that you teach, but heal.
Speak from experience, yeah.
Or speak from experience,
yeah. And so it's not just about giving a client the results that they want, but it's also about connecting with them.
Right.
So if you've grown up in a violent household, and I've grown up in a violent household, or if you've been raped and I've been raped, we connect instantly.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And people want that. They want connection. They want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be felt.
Yeah, I feel that very strongly.
How do you feel about the hissing now?
It's interesting. It's first of all, the sound of it is becoming like just like if I could draw it, it's this now, where it was just like a solid. It's
And how is it making you feel?
it makes me feel. I feel like I didn't know all of that, so I'm processing and integrating it. Will I feel things like how when you have a session, what do you tell people about what to expect?
I usually say that there will be maybe a 7-day process where you continue to release, process, and integrate. And there may be some detox symptoms. So
Somebody?
detox symptoms.
Like?
It could be a cold. It could be that you just sleep very deeply. Or you could feel nauseated. The detox symptoms vary from person to person depending on how much they're releasing.
Right.
Yeah.
So good. That we could have conversations like this is amazing.
Yeah.
I was saying to my son, we were just discussing this morning, I'm like, I was born in 1964, and nobody was really, I found like little occult books when I was a kid, and I was like, I spoke to me, like I was like, okay, all right, I'm not crazy. I know something. There's something else going on. And then we have social media that then exposes it to the rest of the world. So it's like super exciting. And
Yeah.
your work is like incredibly exciting and powerful, and yet you're very low key about it. You're just like, whatever. You just have this amazing gift. And you walk into the room and you can feel you. Just immediately. Yeah. You've got like this light coming out of your eyes. You have, it's like you're like shooting. No, but seriously. So, I could feel that. I'm sure people feel that as well. I think the whole lockdown, I always say it to Norman, like I remember the moment that the lockdown happened and it was, oh, this isn't like a day. This is like really happening. Like we're, like something that never happened before in my lifetime, right? Okay, this is happening. And I remember going, this is going to be so interesting. Even though I was scared, I didn't know what it was, but it was like everyone doing the same thing at the same time, and really a global experience, truly, right? In some ways, as tragic as it was unifying. People started to realize, oh, we're all on this little, virus spread like wildflower. We must, like wildfire. We must be very connected, and then the podcast came in, and people had to experience, being alone, but still being able to be connected. So I think it was really exponential growth in the last few years with people having a voice of their own.
Yeah.
And then being able to find others in community. So that's exciting to me. So to that end, talk to me about how you create your workshops and how you conduct your workshops, how people find you, and are there different levels of people's ability and whatever?
Well, if people are interested in a private one-on-one session, I only work remotely, they can go to ChineseEnergyHealing.com.
ChineseEnergyHealing.com.
Yes.
Okay.
But if they want to learn how to do what I do, they can go to alchemistsartshealing.com. And then there's a Zoom workshop that I teach from time to time where I will be present and live on Zoom, and that's a 7-day workshop.
7 days. It's consecutive?
Yes.
How many hours a day?
It's usually from 10 to 5.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's...
How many people usually?
I like to keep my classes really small.
Like 20?
Under 20. Yeah. Otherwise, there's too much energy to manage.
Yeah.
You know.
It loses the intimacy.
Yes. Well, there's a lot that we cover. You know, we do basic energy healing, and we do psychometry, which is reading objects, doing a psychic reading, reading into objects, someone's cell phone or someone's ring or jewelry or even the chair that you're sitting on, and we read water. You know, when you just download your information into a glass or a bowl of water, and the other person can read that.
Wow.
You know, get a psychic hit from that. And then we do psychic surgery, which is a form of entity removal. We clear karma, and we learn psychic mediumship.
What is explain to me what psychic mediumship is?
So a psychic reading is me dropping into your energy field and giving you a psychic reading from your energy field. But when I do psychic mediumship, I'm tuning into the spirit world.
Okay.
So I'm tuning into people who have left the earth plane. They've crossed over, they've passed. But we also cover astral projecting as well in the course. I have complete beginners and professionals take my workshops, and they all can speak to loved ones who have crossed over. And I'd say 99% of my students who have taken my workshop are able to astral project first time.
Cool.
Yeah.
You're making me remember a lot of things. Like as a kid, I used to fly. Yeah. And that was like a secret of mine because it was real for me. Like I would go to bed and I would fly.
Yeah.
And for years and years and years, and I was just like quiet about it. But I don't know if that would be called astral projection.
It is. Yeah. Astral projecting.
Interesting.
Can you see your body, physical body,
Yeah,
laying
just
there?
fly,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's astral projecting.
Yeah, and then sometimes I am literally flying, and I'm not looking down. I'm flying all over the neighborhood, or and then it just stopped, and I think it stopped around that stopped between like 12 and 16, and then it really never came back. And then I occasionally have them now, and I remember, oh my God, that whole world that I had, that I was like living privately. Fascinating. And so how did you learn? Like, you say things very kind of casually, like, well, I teach people how to read water. I mean, how did you know how to do that?
Well, I've taken a lot of classes.
A lot.
A lot. I've done a lot of workshops, probably over 30 workshops, different modalities,
Yeah.
And I had to force myself to study psychic mediumship, because my son, when he was a baby, he started seeing spirits and orbs and things. And
how did he tell you that? And at what age, and how did you know that it wasn't his imagination?
Yeah, he would point and say, light, And then I think one time he was a year old and he was sleeping in his bedroom, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. My husband at the time, and I heard this blood-curdling scream. And when your baby has a blood-curdling scream.
Yeah.
And we ran upstairs and took him, and he was sweating profusely, vein popping out of his forehead and everything. And his eyes were darting around, really frantic. And I had learned Chinese energy healing at that point. I hadn't studied psychic mediumship, but I just instinctively sensed that he was looking at entities and they were trying to get to him. He couldn't speak, but so my husband at the time was carrying him, and he was clawing up my husband's body, trying to get away from these entities. And so I just instinctively opened up a portal, counted the amount of entities that there were around, and just threw them into the portal, closed the portal, and then my son, like one beat, he just stopped crying, and he pointed upstairs and he went, bed. So we took him and put him to bed, and he was fine after that. And then there was another time when he was maybe 3 or 4, we sat around the dinner table, and he said, oh, there's this lady called Mary sat there. She's someone's grandmother, and she just wants to sit with us whilst we eat.
Wow.
So I was like, okay.
So your son has been a pivotal figure
Yes.
in your healing work. Because
Yes.
you had also talked about that your son, when he was little, had a series of colds with little break in between. And you, as a parent, you just do anything to take away your child's
Yeah.
pain. And so you went to a healer.
Yes.
Even though you maybe weren't somebody who followed healers, but you were like, I'm going to try that.
Yes.
And that person became pretty important in
Yes.
your journey.
Yes. Yeah, no, my son has instigated everything. The energy healing, the psychic mediumship, just everything.
How did you come to working on children's books?
I wanted to do something fun. I sat in meditation and I connected to the universe and I said, I would really like to do something fun. I need more fun things in my life. What can I do that is fun? And I heard children's books and I was like, what? Really? No. And that's usually my response to everything that I get. What? Really? No, no way.
But then you keep hearing.
Yeah. And then I kept hearing it and then I kept seeing it and I kept getting the signs and the messages. So I was like, okay. So now I have published 3 children's books.
Teaching children how to.
The first book teaches children how to love themselves. The second book teaches children that it's okay to be different. And the third book teaches children how to become or how to activate their inner healer.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Can you buy the books on your website?
Not on the website. I think on the website there's a link to the Amazon
Okay.
page.
Understood. And how, well, I guess you said it, the Alchemist, what is it called?
alchemistartshealing.com
Okay,
for workshops.
Artshealing.com if you want to learn how to become a healer.
Yes. Well,
Or just learn what a healer, how to heal oneself.
all the different modalities, also light language as well. Yeah, so if you want to learn psychic mediumship or you want to learn basic energy healing or how to clear karma or how to remove entities or how to remove traumas or relationship blockages or career blockages, abundance blockages, how to astral project, how to connect with your
Oh my gosh, I think I'm
guides.
going to do that.
How to connect with your guides, your animal totems.
Fascinating, Garz Chan. Honestly, why it makes me so excited to talk about these things and share these ideas and learn about what you do is because it just opens up the playing field, the field of play, to what we really can experience. So, and just being in your presence actually is very activating. So I really thank you for that. It's such a gift.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming to the studio today.
Thank you for
Garz
having
Chan.
me.
Thank you.